Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome to the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Carissa.
Perfect. And everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, second part of the show, we will have computer and technology news, and that will be everything that is late breaking, everything from product, policy, other things that start with P. But overall, it's just, any new tech stories or anything that we feel you should know about, hey, we're going to go ahead and let you know. And in the first part of the show, well, we have something actually pretty darn similar, except we're going to have an author on who has written about a topic that has come up often enough on the show that I feel this definitely warrants having someone on who is probably much more well-versed than myself. And Carissa, I'm really looking forward to it. So let me just go ahead and get this out of the way real quick. Everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find past shows, future shows, show notes, podcasts, the live video feed, all that and more at computeramerica.com. Find us on social media at computeramerica. Blah, blah, blah. I think that's about it. So, Carissa, unless you have anything else to say, I think we just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. So, again, I want to make sure that, all of this, we get a good idea of this because, as I said before, this is a topic that I really think, goes back a number of years into the current administration and their policy towards foreign tech companies. It's kind of convoluted, but I think we have the right person here to explain it to us. And joining us today is Miss Rachel Lerman. She is a technology reporter for the Washington Post. And Rachel, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. And so before we get started with the topic, which anyone out there watching the video portion will, kind of have the article up there for everyone. But before we get started with that, a little bit of background on yourself. How long have you been reporting on technology, and what is your background?
So I've been reporting on technology for about 7 or 8 years now, from the Pacific Northwest to now I'm based in San Francisco, and I joined the Washington Post just this April.
Congrats! They're definitely a great publication, and hey, I'm sure that you're loving it there. And again, thank you for coming on the show and talking about this in particular. I'm trying in my head, and I probably should have done this before the show. Thought of a good way to introduce this whole topic and kind of get to the root of it. But I guess the latest stuff first, and then we'll talk about how we got here. So the article that you wrote, I believe, on Tuesday, or at least it was published on Tuesday, was this article about TikTok suing Trump and the administration for its impending ban, which is a whole thing. So this particular topic, because I know that there are other embedded articles within this, how long have you been covering this particular issue of TikTok and potential ban and just, yeah?
It's interesting because I've been looking at TikTok for about the past year or so, just as it kind of grew in popularity and changed from being what we thought of as just like, oh, kind of like that teen app to something a lot more popular and widespread. But really, this issue with Trump has escalated so quickly just over the last month. And it's kind of wild to believe that it's only been 1 month because there's been so many twists and turns.
Yeah, and when I was doing my introduction, I said that this kind of goes back a couple of years, and you said that you just started in April, so but I'm sure that you follow technology as a passion as well. So about 2 years ago, there was there was some conflict within the current administration, the Security Department, the Pentagon, and Kaspersky Labs out of Russia, as well as a couple, I think Huawei. That was like the first wave of Huawei bans as well. And, it was interesting to see such an adversarial approach to what was traditionally seen as a very, I guess kind of friendly tech company, like they Kaspersky Labs in particular, they were respected all over the globe for their virus definitions and their work in cybersecurity, and then almost out of nowhere they got swept up in this kind of national security edict that the president was kind of putting out there. Do you recall anything with that incident?
I remember it all going down, but I wasn't tracking it closely at the time. Right. But you're right. The escalation between Trump and China and these national security concerns has really been building for quite some time here.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, that was for cybersecurity, and they lost billions in contracts for that. But hey, national security, the president has pretty good authority there, and it feels like, as far as national security, I remember writing an article about that when it first happened, and I was confused, and I'm wondering if you looked into this with the TikTok and the current ban that is soon coming, is that they set out these bans where it's like, okay, within 3 months, in this case, 30 days turned into 45 days, we have that long to do something or you're banned. And I'm wondering if you saw that as kind of a strange thing for a national security threat, because you think if something is like a very immediate threat to national security, you would cut it off right then, not be like, okay, keep tracking for 45 days and we'll see what happens. Like, if it's a threat, how is this an immediate threat, I guess, in your reporting?
Yeah, it's interesting because all of the concerns calling it a national security threat has really been centered around data. So basically, Trump and other lawmakers are concerned that TikTok is collecting all of this information about U.S. customers, and then it could one day hand it over to the Chinese government. Now, Ben, but TikTok has said it's not doing this. It's storing all U.S. information in the U.S. with backups in Singapore. So it says it doesn't hand over customer information from the U.S. to the Chinese government, but that's kind of the concern. But then the timing of the order, which gave it 45 days, obviously coincided with Microsoft and a couple other companies showing interest in buying TikTok. So it also serves to put pressure on that deal.
So and let's talk about that deal, because that deal to sell to an American company, maybe a good way to put this into perspective is kind of stepping back a bit and talking about TikTok, because you said you've been following it for a year and it's rapid growth. But what does rapid growth mean as far as a data collection company and a social media platform? How big of a deal is this? Because I feel like if this was just like, I don't know, MySpace, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but TikTok's getting pretty big, isn't it?
TikTok is getting really big. It's interesting because actually just in this lawsuit, we got one of the first actual looks we've gotten into TikTok's user numbers. And so right now in the US, it has over 91 million monthly active users, and that number shoots up to 100 million on a quarterly basis. But it's really interesting because if you look at it in February 2019, so just last February, it only had 26 million US users. So it's grown by this huge magnitude just in the last year and a half.
Those are impressive numbers for, I guess, any social media, and of course one that is I don't want to say new, because Musically was, kind of what it was before they merged with ByteDance, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Musically was, pretty popular in its own right, but not really at this scale that TikTok has become.
Right. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about 100 million American users, where quarterly, like you said. So what is that? About 1 in 3, 1 in 4, people in the U.S. And that's a lot of data. And then, of course, the data that is generated, like they said, is hosted in Singapore and the U.S. That's another kind of sticking point that we should also talk about. Is there any guarantee that I guess what TikTok is saying is accurate? And is there any guarantee that kind of what the US with national security threats is accurate? How it seems like there's like a lot of kind of assumptions and vague accusations, but how do we know what's actually going on here?
Right. So it's interesting. So we actually ran an analysis on the TikTok app to try to see where the information was going. And there's no indication that your information is leaving the US. And TikTok claims, that it's not leaving the US. So there's really no reason for us to think that it's not. But there's also no way to definitively determine that as like an external user. And I think the concern from lawmakers is that the Chinese government does exert a lot of control over the companies that are based, within that country. And so they're kind of saying, well, even if the data is not going there now, how do we know that it won't get turned over in the future? Of course, we also know that like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they're all collecting massive amounts of data on us as well.
Google and Amazon and all those other ones too.
Absolutely. It seems like
Totally.
the underlying blood of a tech company, regardless if you are a search engine company or a social media company, the underlying blood of it is data, and everyone collects a lot of it. So yeah, the data is so valuable, which again puts TikTok in a very interesting place, because you talked about the growth numbers in the US, and it makes a lot of sense because we're talking about potential sale to a US company, and we're going to talk about the legality of that kind of pressure. But in India, they just recently banned TikTok, as well as like 56 other apps and other copycat apps and things like that. In India, but still, I believe over in India, they had numbers that were like 800 million or something like that. Like there were a lot of, and I'm sure that you might have better numbers, but it was hundreds of millions of users in India, along with, what was in China. Like, I feel like if TikTok lost the India and the US market together, that would very much harm a fast growing company.
Totally. It would be really detrimental to them. And that's why it seems like there's been some scrambling to make a deal, because now we have these dual executive orders, right? One that says that TikTok will get banned, and then almost does like a placeholder if that doesn't go through. There's also one that would force ByteDance to divest from TikTok in the US. But yeah, it's interesting too, because India's ban looks a lot different than ours, because we don't really have a Chinese Great Firewall or a way for a government to ban it in that fashion.
Right. Yeah, and it's the closest thing you have is the Apple ecosystem, which Apple keeps it pretty good close, or I should say keeps a pretty good close ecosystem. But of course, with Android being Android, I don't see how that would ever be possible. So let's talk about one aspect of this, which is again the proposed sale. Which companies are interested in buying? Because this is a multi-billion-dollar company. Who can buy this? Who's looking to maybe buy TikTok?
So Microsoft is the only one that's come right out and confirmed that they're interested in buying TikTok. And they, issued a blog, and then they said their CEO, Satya Nadella, talked to President Trump, and he kind of like gave the green light for them to pursue this deal. And they've said that they're going to wrap up those deal talks by September 15th. So we should know how that's going soon. There's also been reports that Twitter and Oracle are interested in buying TikTok. Now, for those companies, it would be more financially difficult, so they might end up having to partner with like some venture capital firms. But it seems like there's a lot of interest because, like you said, TikTok's so valuable and really popular.
it does have a lot of data that's generating, and it has an audience that I guess Facebook wish it has, which is that younger audience as well. But yeah, and I really do think it'll be interesting, because if Microsoft, as you said, the only ones who are openly looking to purchase this thing, purchase it, because Microsoft isn't well known for, I guess, social media, or even, I can't say applications because they have the whole Office suite, but, that would be kind of a revenue stream that, other than maybe like the Xbox, the whole operating system and Xbox and video games, they don't really have a good stream of, kind of new data like Twitter or Facebook have.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the closest thing that they currently have to a social media platform is LinkedIn, which is obviously professional networking and really not the same thing as TikTok.
Right.
So it would be a big move for them.
It would definitely be an area that they could use a good foothold in. Now, let's talk about the reason why this is so surprising. And whenever I explain it to people, it always kind of surprised them, because I can't recall an instance where the U.S. government said, kind of put pressure and said, sell to a U.S. company or get out. And like that flatness, like, it's either black or white, A and B, sell or whatever. And then, of course, using that political pressure, they've even said that puts a lot of leverage in favor of Microsoft, saying, hey, you sell to us or, you're going to get kicked out. That seems a little corrupt, as a word, I guess.
It's interesting because this is unprecedented in a lot of ways. Like, we haven't seen the government use these international emergency economic powers to ban a big consumer app like this. The other process, the one that's forcing ByteDance to divest in its acquisition of Musical.ly, which essentially means divesting in TikTok in the US, that process is used fairly regularly in the US. We saw even recently with the dating app Grindr. That was a kind of a similar situation. But the difference here is that it seems the president has taken a personal interest in this and is even perhaps, talking to potential suitors like Microsoft, and then saying basically if they don't sell, then they will definitively get banned. So it's those two separate orders that are kind of working in concert with each other.
It's very different from a lot of these kind of acquisitions that I've seen before. And now, hey, we have traveled all the way around to, again, the heart and soul of this article that you last put out with the TikTok lawsuit, because unprecedented means, hey, potentially not even legal. So talk about the lawsuit that TikTok sued, and does it have... do you think it'll have any consequences, like delaying the ban, or do you think it'll hold up, or do you think, hey, at the end of it all, the judicial system isn't as fast as these things move, and it's all just going to fall apart anyways?
Yeah, so the lawsuit is really interesting because basically what TikTok is saying is that the process was politicized and the company didn't get enough time to comment or push back, and therefore there should be an injunction and they should get more time, et cetera, et cetera. They also make a lot of points in the lawsuit where they try to prove that they are not, in fact, a national security threat, and go through a lot of the measures that the company has taken to protect user data and do all of those things. But the way that I understand it from the lawyers that I have spoken with is that they can put things like that in there, but they can't actually challenge the order on its merit. Rather, what they can challenge is the underlying process of the order. So that's what they're saying, is they're saying, this is a politicized process. We didn't get enough chance to comment. The due process was unfair. As for how successful it's going to be, it's really hard to say because we just haven't seen anything like this. So they're basically asking for, an injunction to give them more time to untangle this legal battle and to do all of these things. And it's kind of like, are we going to see anything from that? And we're really just not sure. The other thing is, it does help them kind of, in a way, TikTok is trying to make a point, right? Like, they're trying to say, we are safe and we don't need to be banned. And this is also one more way to do that.
And going back to Kaspersky Labs 2 years ago, I recall that when their anti-malware software was being questioned for use in the Pentagon because of their ties to the Russian government, they were very open. They said, "Here's our source code. Here's everything that we have." Like, there was nothing left that could have been left unchecked in the program itself, and that still wasn't good enough. Which, again, I feel like TikTok has done kind of the same thing, where they said, look at where we're sending the data, look at where we're hosting, look at what we collect. If there's something here that you don't agree with, let us know. And that doesn't really seem to matter, which again would point to this being politicized.
Yeah, and it's been interesting because we've, of course, seen all of these political interviews and kind of back and forth pop up during this public relations kind of wagering at the same time as the political wagering. And obviously, TikTok is also caught in kind of this escalating trade battle between the U.S. and China. So there's really a lot going on. But, it's not just the Trump administration that's expressed national security concerns about the company.
Right. Yeah. They're senators and cybersecurity professionals who have done the same. This quote here from your article here, I also want to highlight, is that the president proclaimed this during a campaign-style rally, which I know that I've seen enough of them. And while we don't get into politics too much here on the show, his campaign, I guess, kind of speeches are a little rambly, and they kind of he freestyles it. He speaks from the heart, I guess, as you could say. But he says that TikTok has no rights, and that he would ban TikTok if they do not pay the money. And we'll talk about the national treasury, which just seems like an offhanded comment for him. But that line right there is like, TikTok has no rights and they can't fight this. So blah. That seems like kind of the heart of it, where TikTok is in between a rock and a hard place. And to stay competitive, they might just have to sell.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is a tough situation because, just like you said, if they don't sell, it seems that ByteDance is going to have to divest anyway. Mm-hmm. And so they would essentially lose their assets in the U.S. one way or the other. So it really puts pressure on them to sell unless something dramatic changes with the orders.
Right. So real quick, Rachel, so let's say this, they divest or they sell to the U.S. and the issue is the data collection and, of course, abuse by, as they say here, the Chinese government. But if that data is so valuable and is so, so many people are vulnerable to what kind of data that is collected, from a consumer standpoint, do you feel that the new owners, be it Microsoft or any other company, do you think that they're going to clean up TikTok's act and stop collecting that data? Or do you think it's just, as long as that data is being collected by a U.S. firm, that's okay?
I would say that a lot of the lawmakers are kind of focused on that. As long as the data is being collected by a U.S. firm, that it's okay. But of course, we know that there's been a significant push in the last 2 years now for Congress to regulate how even the American companies collect data. I will say, for the leading suitor, Microsoft has a super kind of clean and well thought of record when it comes to cybersecurity and protecting data, which I think is another point that puts them in the advantage here.
They do. Their ability to, handle Dropbox with as cleanly as they have, no major security threats or breaches or anything like that, and of course LinkedIn and all the different contact data for the business enterprise. Yeah, Microsoft would do a very good job of it. I just wanted to say that as far as consumers are concerned, the data would still be collected, and China is just a whole nother can of worms that we didn't really open. So there's that article. And again, if anyone out there, we're going to have a link to this in the show notes. Definitely go check it out over at the Washington Post. But I got to say that it's almost like a Russian nesting doll, but it has nothing to do with Russia, where it's like article within an article within an article. This one, you have been following this story for a little while now. So there's plenty of information for people out there to go find, huh?
Yeah, there's really been a lot going on.
I couldn't agree more. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This interview might have lasted a little bit longer than we thought, but I got to say that this, again, it comes up almost every 2 weeks with a new twist, a new turn. The latest turn was the lawsuit. Before that, it was the 30-day ban turning into a 45-day ban. And I know it might be unprofessional, but I just kind of have to ask you, how do you see this ending? In your opinion, how do you see this ending?
It's interesting because it's so unprecedented that I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem like there's a lot of pressure on TikTok to sell. So it looks like it could possibly be pointed toward that. But with the legal challenge and with breaking new ground here, we just really don't know.
It certainly seems like one of those things that if it makes it all the way to any kind of court decision or anything like that, it's going to, like I said before, unfortunately, maybe even be like a year or 2 years too late to actually affect this particular deal. But it's a good question. What happens when the administration gets involved in like individual private sale of companies? It's very concerning. But Rachel, I'll let you have the last word. Is there anything about this topic we didn't cover? Anything that you wanted to kind of outline before we wrap it up?
I think it's just also interesting to keep in mind exactly how much information you're sharing with all these social media and other tech companies that we're all using all the time. And I guess a good reminder to check your privacy settings.
That is good everyday advice. And everyone, once again, at Computer America on Facebook. No, I'm kidding. It's you're absolutely right that social media. What is that line that everyone uses? If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, or something like that. Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And check your settings. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So everyone, once again, we have been talking to Ms. Rachel Lerman. She is the, a technology reporter for the Washington Post. And Rachel, I want to thank you so much. And this was very enlightening. Thank you for explaining that to us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Our pleasure. And we look forward to hearing from you. And now we're going to be very rude and kick you off the call, but we're going to wrap up with computer and technology news. So have a great day.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Yep. Bye. All right, and Carissa, now we are going to go ahead and do computer and technology news. But before we do, obviously there was a lot there that I had to say. I said it very poorly. Rachel did an amazing job, but I wanted to, kind of get your reaction before we moved on. As someone who, Carissa, I don't know what your background was and what research you did before the show, or what your background was on this topic, but do you have any questions? And I should have probably had Rachel stay on for that, but yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, I guess it's
what is
because
TikTok?
of the ban.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, because of the ban is what kind of brought all this together, but I'm kind of wondering what gives the U.S. the right, aside from the data that they're collecting from Americans, to be even doing this in the first place. Because if the company's not in America, what gives us the right to impose this thing on this company?
Well, the right is the national security concern, and the Trump's administration of, let's see, there's an executive order that he can write.
It?
Yeah, that's currently the issue. And like, don't get me wrong, there are legitimate national security issues that private firms and government firms have to deal with every single day, from tons of different applications and tons of different services. But again, that entire interview and having her on, which was such a treat, was because, like she said, this particular way of doing things, of sell to a U.S. company or get out, has never been done before.
Right.
It's a very interesting topic, and unfortunately, I don't think it will reach any kind of satisfying legal explanation for it, because, like I said, by the time we find out legally what's going on, it'll be too late for what's happening now. So,
right, but
it's
at
still
least we can come
interesting
back to it and reference it in the future, and kind of use that later on if this for some reason happens to be an issue again.
Yeah. Oh, and it definitely will, because if it has this time, then it definitely will in the future. So everyone, once again, we'll have a link to that in the show notes, and you can go over to the Washington Post. You can find it there, but hey, we'll be able to link directly to Rachel Lerman's reporting. It's very interesting. And like I said, there was that article. There was one that she put out on August 17th. And then, of course, there was one that she put out, I think this was on August 6th. she has been, putting these things out almost weekly because these developments happen so quickly, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for it as well. Now, Carissa, if you, unless anything else, last chance, we're going to do computer and technology news.
I am ready for computer and technology news.
There we go. Now, here's the part where I failed. I have the perfect one, and Chris, I see that you are sending me a couple as well. Appreciate that. We're going to start with this one, though. And this one, The Independent is doing this, I guess, kind of, how do I put this? The Independent is doing this kind of wrong because they're like breaking news, but this isn't really breaking news, as I understand it, because this has been a concern for a couple months. But this echoes something that Carissa said, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Carissa, do you recall what your issue was with Tesla potentially launching hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of satellites into low Earth orbit? Do you recall what your gut reaction was? Like the main issue.
Yeah, like blocking out the sky and the stars and all that stuff.
There you go. So now we have this article from The Independent, and as I understand, this has actually been a concern since this project was first proposed, but hundreds of astronomers warn Elon Musk's Starlink satellite could limit scientific discoveries. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this because I have, I think I have a different take than Carissa. I don't think one's different than the other, or I'm sorry, one's more correct than the other, but it's worth talking about. So let's talk about this real quick, and then reaction, and then we'll go to the next story. But so a number of astronomers have warned that the satellite constellation in Elon Musk's Starlink network could prove extremely impactful to astronomy and scientific progress, saying that a report by the Satellite Constellations 1, SATCON 1 workshop found that constellations of bright satellites will fundamentally change ground-based optics in infrared astronomy and could impact the appearance of the night sky for stargazers around the world. Okay, so there's that, which again was Carissa's feeling, which apparently they have studies that she is correct. Now, Elon Musk's SpaceX he plans to launch about 30,000 Starlink satellites as well, and I think that Blue Origin, which is Amazon's space program, has their own in the works, and that one's going to be like another 15,000 or something like that. So we're talking, almost 50,000 different satellites being in low Earth orbit. Now, options to reduce the impact include darken them, keep them low, orient them to reflect less sunlight, but number one on the list was don't launch them. And again, to highlight that particular one, orient them to reflect less satellite. That is totally possible because they use, what we're seeing is the fact that the solar panels are not directed correctly, so they're kind of reflecting light back towards the sun. Towards the Earth from the sun, and that is why they appear brighter than they should be. But anyways, SpaceX has been frequently blamed for disrupting views of the night sky, and by the way, they have about 500 satellites. So they have 500 of a planned 30,000. Still a lot more going to go. Let's see. So, the private space firm was criticized last month for blocking the view of the comet Neowise as it made its once every 6,800 year journey past the Earth. Poor Neowise. It's okay. We're all going to catch it next time. The Starlink project aims to provide high-speed internet around the globe. If you didn't know, that again is the whole point. After 30,000 satellites are launched, everyone should be able to have high-speed internet anywhere they are, regardless of their location. So yeah, that is the ultimate goal. Now, wrap it all up. They have some quotes here. They have Professor Tony Tyson from the Tony Tyson. Wow. From the
Tony Tiger.
Yeah, exactly what I thought. Tony the Tiger. But yeah, so from the University of California, Davis, and said that one mitigation strategy was making Starlink satellites 10 times darker to remove satellite trails, which Not a bad idea. Maybe some Vansa black. Maybe. However, even if that works, the satellite trails themselves will be clearly seen in the data, complicating data analysis and limiting the discoveries, saying that with tens of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites, we find that generally no combination of mitigation can completely avoid the impacts of the trails. And again, this is something that they have been looking into for months. Let's see. So I wanted to bring this up again, Carissa, because first of all, congrats. You're right. Other people had the same concerns. But what I wanted to have a discussion of was the fact that if this goes through, my initial feeling is that the benefits outweigh the negatives, because if everyone has high-speed internet available to them, and I'm not just talking like, oh, random hiker in Antarctica needs internet, I'm talking the 3 billion people around the earth right now who have no access to the internet, no way to sell, buy, or communicate, to post what they feel is their favorite song, to put up their own version of artwork, to create or, kind of contribute to the internet. That is such a huge benefit to double the internet users across the globe.
Well, I mean, even forget that. What about education? People, in the middle of Africa who've never even seen a computer before, can start reading, can start, learning things, expanding themselves as humans rather than, social media. That's great and all. But like the educational prospects for this, I feel are going to be more important than anything.
There are places that still believe that, and not picking on anyone's, beliefs or what have you, but it's just an access to information problem that, disease is caused by, bad spirits, or that homosexuality is an issue worth killing someone over, or, any of these number of issues that, hey, even just something as simple as access to Wikipedia. Imagine what that could do for entire communities. Or what about, it was pretty big news when a particular person in Africa was able to make his own solar cells and wind turbines and be able to provide his village electricity for the first time because he had some old books that showed him how to build a wind turbine. Like, little things like that can have profound effects across the world. And so when they say that 30,000 satellites is going to ruin the view of Earth, yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem. But the benefit is that so many people get to come online, and man, that's going to have such a huge impact on not just random places in Africa, or random places in China, or random places in India or Russia or whatever. It's going to have a profound effect on everyone on the internet. It's going to be truly amazing. Now, Carissa, my other point is that if we're launching satellites at that rate, let's also invest a little bit more into putting telescopes into space, into orbit above these things, because hey, the Hubble telescope has been doing its job for the past 30 years, and I know that we have like the super large telescope or whatever the heck that thing is. Let's get more telescopes into space so that you don't even have to bother with it. And then I even read a comment, someone saying that it's probably past time that we put a telescope on the moon. That seems like a good idea.
That's a really good idea. And I was thinking about that too. Like, you could, put other telescopes onto these satellites. And even still, let's say you make the satellite out of, that fancy plexiglass that they put on space shuttle, so that way it's clear and you can still see through it maybe. Like, I don't know how many little blinking lights and stuff will be on the internal parts of this thing, but like, what if you made it clear and then you could just see through it as well?
I believe they cover that here by darken them, and you're saying make them clear, but I believe that would be the same thing as just make them less obvious. So that is definitely an option, and they said that they could do some pretty easy things to reduce the visibility of SpaceX has even done their part into reducing the visibility of it in a number of ways. So SpaceX, the company that is causing all the issues, is working on it. There are lots of people with a lot of great ideas, and yeah, I'm just saying that the benefit of it, like, there are ways around a cluttered sky, and that includes, telescopes that are in orbit higher than this constellation, that, putting something on the moon, bigger telescopes, and there are ways to avoid this, but there's really no better way to get people internet access around the globe than something like this. So,
and question, do you think they're going to be flying in clusters, or are they going to be spaced out? Because if they're in clusters, then you could even consider timing as well for, amateur astronomers and telescopes.
30,000 covers a lot of ground, and don't get me wrong, these things are about the size of, if I recall, like 5 feet by 5 feet. They're not extremely big. They're just essentially transmitters that, receive a signal, send out a signal. They don't have to be very complicated, but even with 30,000 of them, I mean, it won't block out the sun. It's nowhere near that level of kludginess. It's more of, like, you said, amateurs. This shouldn't even at the full 30,000, and especially if they darken them a little bit, this shouldn't affect any optical photograph that we're talking about. A lot of the astronomers that we're talking about, they're looking at a distant galaxy or cluster or star or whatever, and their data that is pretty much ones and zeros, and it's either through infrared or radio technology. That's the data, those zeros and ones that we get, that we then interpret for, whatever it is that we're seeing from so far away. That's what gets kludgy. The actual line of sight optical through a camera lens, that should have almost no effect. Again, it's more of the data that would be more affected by this. So, yeah. To the everyday person, like, you can kind of see them now, but you can also kind of see, the 500,000 airplanes that fly over your head every single day. This would have, like, less of an effect than airplanes do.
Right, and it would probably be a fat chance, too, because, like, if you're looking off into the distant galaxy, something's going to have to get in your camera in just the right spot to even, like, impede your sight anyway. So there's a lot of space in between these, I imagine, as well.
It definitely will, because the data recorded is happening continuously. Like, any sudden fluctuation is definitely going to be captured, but it is going to be a little blip. And like they said, they can account for that, and they could take out that data signal, but it's just going to be one more thing to make it even harder for them to do their job. So it would be seen. Again, it would only be a little blip in the data, but hey, they're still concerned about it. Honestly, overall, like I said before, very valid concern, but I think the benefits far outweigh. Yeah, far outweigh the negatives. And hey, if you really asked me, but Ben, what about the astronomers? Give them better toys. Give them satellites out in space. Give them telescopes on the moon. Give them other things to look at, because hey, if we're starting to conquer our immediate orbit, maybe we don't have to let them, I guess, kind of toil away on random volcanoes across the Earth. So there you go. Okay, so there's that one. Chris, so you have a couple of articles linked here. Did you have one in particular that you wanted to kind of look at?
No, I just thought these were interesting. Maybe the Amazon Fedex robots.
We can do that. So let's go and open that. Everyone, this is from Wired.com. Great publication, and package delivery, the sexiest of topics. Let's talk about this. Amazon and FedEx push to put delivery robots on your sidewalk. And this image, this roller, I'm trying to think which company puts these out. And let me just skim the article real quick here. It's a bright blue 6-wheeled robot. If you're watching the video portion, you can see it there. If you're not, think of it like a box on wheels, which is not very descriptive, but the image in your head is probably right. Yeah, it's cooler. Yes. But instead of beer, there's probably, well, hey, maybe beer. yeah, so there's 6 wheels. It's kind of roverish, and they say that this is the future of delivery. And let's see, going through here, this is legislation working its way through that is proposed on behalf of Amazon and FedEx to allow automation of delivery. And this can include everything from a bag of groceries, a toolbox, a prescription to your doorstep, all that and more. Robots will be able to do it. And of course, it would allow them to operate on any sidewalk or crosswalk in Kansas at speeds of up to 6 miles per hour. And a quick human jog. And I'm trying to think, 3 to 3.5 miles an hour is like a decent walk / brisk walk. So this would go about twice as fast as a walk. So I guess, like, they say 6 miles an hour is a brisk jog. If you see me going 6 miles an hour, that's me running. So yeah, follow me. Yeah, so 6 miles an hour, not bad. And again, any crosswalk, any sidewalk, you have to share the road. Let's see. So they said that they knew that the bill wouldn't fly. I think some members of the committee hadn't really considered the impact on their communities. He worried about a provision that would have barred cities and towns from creating their own robot regulations, and officials in Kansas City, Kansas, objected to the robots would be used on public roads and sidewalks without paying into local coffers, which I kind of get, you know. They are using state infrastructure to deliver their goods. Hey, that should be taxed, right?
Well, definitely, but it's not like Amazon or FedEx or any of these large companies are going to be having that done to them because of who they are, but they should be taxed, absolutely.
You're right. They should be taxed something because that is wear and tear, and that is, you know, again,
Right.
using public infrastructure that we all pay for. We don't. I don't think we need to subsidize Amazon at this point. I think they're pretty well on their own. So let's see. Skimming the article a bit more, FedEx CEO, he wrote a letter to his shareholders this month saying that Roxo is preparing for a second round of tests and saying that we'll come out of this pandemic with a greater understanding of how FedEx can benefit customers through these devices. So FedEx, Amazon, and of course that means UPS undoubtedly are working to give this a serious go. So
I also
that's
wonder what that means for mailmen, though. Like,
mailmen are pretty safe. This seems to be, so far, strictly a package and parcel delivery service. And again, this, like the way that they kind of set it up, where they were talking about prescriptions and groceries and tools and toolboxes, things that you need kind of immediately. This is not something that, you know, you would send this out for just like a letter or any kind of average package, at least not at this moment. But if you order some milk, then hey, this rover would be able to keep it cool and get it to your door without a dedicated person having to walk it to your door. So it has a place, and I can see where it belongs. It's just, again, this article seems pretty heavy on the legislative side of it, which needs to come. There needs to be laws in place before we start seeing robots starting to take over cities. Carissa, one example that I put out there often is, have you been to a major city in the past year or two? And I'm talking like New York, Chicago, Dallas, one of these cities.
not recently, but I have here in Boulder, in Colorado, has been seeing robots around town. I went over to SpectraLink back at my previously to drop something off for work, and there was a robot in the parking lot. And
Was it a security bot?
I think it was, and it freaked me out much more than I was expecting it to, because
Was it about like a 5-foot egg looking thing?
Yeah, it was kind of eggy. It was kind of more like a Christmas tree shape, kind of like that,
Yeah.
in that triangle shape. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And then I was in Walmart kind of recently too, and there was one in Walmart too. And this one was like floor sweeping and doing some other stuff.
That
So they're
one,
like even coming into the smaller towns now too.
yeah, the Walmart ones detect spills, and I think they can even clean up some minor spills, and they also scan shelves so that they know what's low in stock and what they need to restock, and they can keep better inventory management. So that's what the Walmart one was. The security one we've also seen, and that's more of like a camera / emergency alert system / a nighttime patrolman. So you don't have to pay a security guard to patrol, let's say the parking lot at late at night.
Right.
Yeah, so
Well, what's the
robots are
robot
coming.
going to do late at night? Does he have guns? Does he have laser beams? Like, what is this robot, the security robot, going to do if not?
He has a siren. He has a siren and a camera hooked up directly to the cops. That is all he
lame.
has. Yeah, kind of lame. Maybe if he had bigger wheels, he could just run over the perpetrators.
Oh, like
but
a tank. That'd be great.
yeah, not even. But I got to say that the reason I bring these up is that I feel like there was no legislation for e-scooters and e-bikes and your like Lime. I think was one of them. Anyways, e-scooters are really what I'm talking about. No legislation against them. And they kind of caught on because you kind of walk up, scan it with your phone, put in your payment information, and it starts right up, and you take it wherever you want. And then when you're done, you kind of say, "I'm done," and you just drop your e-scooter or your e-bike or whatever. You just drop it on the ground and walk away. That led to so many problems. I saw piles, heaps. It was just messy. It was like dystopian. If e-scooters were dead bodies, my God, that would have been a horror set. But my point is that when there's no legislation saying, hey, where can you operate, where you can't operate, and you let the tech companies kind of just have at it, I think everyone suffers from it because they're going to push the bounds on what's acceptable and what isn't. So the legislative part has to come, I guess, kind of soon.
I feel like they would probably have to make like their own dedicated lanes if they don't want to, contribute to the taxes and the maintenance of these roads and stuff like that. Like maybe, or maybe you'd even turn it into a drone, like they've been talking about forever, where you don't even have to use the sidewalk or the street or whatever it is. Or you could, make a secondary bike lane for your little cart guy to just cruise down the road and deliver your stuff. But it's all infrastructure and all of that anyway.
If we can get you out to CES not next year because CES is canceled next year. In the year following, you should talk to the folks over at Bosch. They're a lot of fun. And they do a lot of work with city planning and what the future of the smart city looks like. We've had them on the show. They think about exactly those questions that you're asking. What's the way to do it affordably? What's the way to do it economically and conveniently? And hey, how do we even do it at all? So a lot of big companies are going to make a lot of money trying to figure out exactly those questions. But I digress. There you go. There's that story. Now, let's go ahead and continue on here. And let's see. So some of the other articles. Check this out. This is an article from The Independent. Once again, good publication lately. Researchers have achieved the fastest ever internet speed that could download all of Netflix in a single second.
Fake news.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so this is the University College London, and they're able to transmit data at 178 terabits per second.
No
Ladies and
way.
gentlemen, you have the byte, kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte. Let's see, it was terabyte. Yeah, and I guess so we're at terabits. So this could essentially do an entire, let's say, 1 terabyte hard drive. It would take it approximately 0.01 seconds to do an entire terabyte hard drive. Now, obviously, there's a couple holdups here. The first one being that your hard drive probably cannot transmit data that fast. So the bottleneck would no longer be your internet connection. The bottleneck would be everything else in your network. Now, of course, the speed is double the capacity of any system currently used in the world and a fifth faster than the previous record. So this thing is 20% faster and twice as capable of handling throughput. So it's not even like, it has like very, very narrow throughput, but it can do that narrow thing very quickly. Lots of throughput, high speeds. The connection is so fast that it could download the entire Netflix library in just 1 second, and it is also getting close to the theoretical limit of data transmission, which was proposed by American mathematician Claude Shannon in 1949. If I recall, the theoretical limit is essentially how much data can you encode and then send in a a photon of light, which are essentially electrons. And yeah, we're kind of reaching that limit. Although, of course, making it applicable and making it usable in the real world, we're still infinitely far from that. So let's go ahead and say that it remains a level of proof of concept. Home broadband consumers are unlikely to see their internet connection speeding up to those levels anytime soon. Maybe in the next 50 or so years, but not currently. But the researchers who created it note that it will be relatively easy to use the technology on existing infrastructure, and that could be reasonably cost effective. All is needed is to upgrade the amplifiers that are used in an optical fiber. Adding a new amplifier would cost about 16,000 British pounds, or what is that, about $17,000? $17,000 compared to a 450,000 pound, or about $500,000 per kilometer that it can cost to install new fiber. So essentially what they're saying is, maybe for new stuff, the cost would be rolled into it, and the cost is not incredibly astronomical, but it is a high cost. Such increases in speed would be required in the future for the amount of data being transmitted. As it becomes easier to create and store information, it will also become more important to be able to transfer that data. And it is likely that such speeds will be required for as yet unthought of applications that will transform people's lives. Carissa, I just got to say off the top of my head, if you had that speed with even more throughput, you're looking at surgeries being done in real time from across the globe. You're talking about Zoom calls that would never cut out and be able to handle hundreds, if not thousands of people, and it would have no issues. Data just would not be an issue anymore if you could transfer it at those speeds.
Absolutely, and I also wonder how that's going to affect quantum computing, for example, or bigger things like that, government facilities that need that kind of data, or even museums, things like that. Keeping track of the coronavirus stuff, all of that.
And I think you kind of put it there, but data collection. What about data collection when, kind of right now, a limiting factor to how much data is being collected are, one, how many sensors are available, and two, how much bandwidth do you have? Because if you tried to take as much data as you could, you would throw off whatever application you're trying to use. Like Facebook, they would collect even more data if their users wouldn't notice. So when you have that kind of speed, that kind of throughput, imagine all the data that you can kind of competently save and store, and then be able to analyze. Data collection would take it to the next level. It'd be very, very interesting.
I wonder if there's going to be a point where we've got we much data. It's like, all right, guys.
We already have. We already have the National Security Agency, the NSA, was collecting, I believe, about 2 petabytes of cell phone calls and data, and this was like a year and a half ago. They were collecting about 2 petabytes a day of every American phone call across the country, and they were storing it all in massive data servers that they built in the Midwest. And they had so much data, and their budget was blown all to heck, and they had no way to actually analyze the data, that when it came time for the Pentagon to kind of renew their contract for national security purposes, they kind of just said, let's not do this because it's not giving us any value. Yeah, we're collecting all the data, but we have no way to sift through it and look at what's actually being said. So yeah, we're already there, but
well, if you can connect this with some AI, this internet might be able to analyze all of that data fast enough and then filter out the stuff that you're actually looking for example, would be, I guess, maybe another use for it. Or connect it to the satellites and send it around the world.
There you go. And honestly, all of this technology put together either paints a dystopian future, or it paints a very productive, and I think a very good future for everyone. Because if we can find some way to, kind of harness that and mix it with a lot of stuff that we've been talking about, productivity. I mean, hey, what happens when you automate a lot of the life around you? It's just going to be better. and
it turns into Wall-E, and then you just ride around in your little carts. And
almost. But you know what? They were fat and they were happy. So
happy. That's the big part.
Maybe Wall-E wasn't too bad. So there's that article, super fast internet, and hey, not completely, impossible. So we have time for oh my God, not even one more story. Let's see some of these other ones that you had, that you'd picked. Neuralink, we're not going to talk about. I feel like we already gave Elon Musk enough publicity with his space thing. But you have this other one from TorrentFreak, which I love everything that they do about pirating and kind of the news and what it is. This last article,
so funny to me.
Again, we're not going to have time to do it. So if you want to find out more, go to computeramerica.com and you can find a link there in the show notes. But Anti-Piracy outfit hires VPN expert to help track down the Pirate Bay.
Good luck.
That's kind of the whole point. Don't get me wrong, the Pirate Bay, you can take down individuals who register the domains and kind of maintain the server space, but overall, it is a completely decentralized, and every time you take one down, it is easily relaunched with a new person in a new place. So actually, I forgot to hit the music, but yeah. It's not so easy. It's almost like bring me the hacker 4chan. It's not a single person and it's not someone you can kind of point a finger at. It's decentralized. So yeah, check out that article. It's it's pretty long and pretty funny. But everyone, that's about it for today. I want to thank you so much, Carissa. Thank you again for being here, and I hope that you had fun. Everyone else out there, I hope that you had fun. Thank you to our guest again, Rachel, for coming on from the Washington Post. Everyone, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.